This is apropos. Well, since returning to office, Donald Trump and his administration have taken a number of actions aimed at restricting access to abortion, both within the US and internationally, including pardoning anti-abortion protesters convicted of violating a law that protects abortion clinics and their patients, and freezing foreign aid, the US being the single biggest donor to the United Nations Sexual and Reproductive Health Agency. Our New York correspondent Jessica Masurier reports on the case of one doctor who could face criminal prosecution for sending abortion pills out of state.
A doctor here in New York has found herself at the centre of a legal battle over women's reproductive rights in the United States. Dr. Margaret Carpenter is facing legal challenges in 2 states where abortion is almost entirely banned. A Texas judge has fined her over $100,000 for sending abortion pills to someone in the state. And in Louisiana, the Attorney General has signed an extradition request for Dr. Carpenter after she was indicted for prescribing an abortion pill to a teenager there. Take a listen.
And what's next?
She's not a provider. She's a drug dealer. She didn't provide care to anybody.
Well, New York's Governor Kathy Hochul was quick to respond to that. She says she won't comply with the extradition request.
When the Attorney General of Louisiana calls this doctor a drug dealer, I want all Americans to know exactly what that means. As a result of the Trump administration stacking the Supreme Court, overturning Roe v. Wade, which gave us protections that we took for granted for almost 50 years, that now doctors who are trained to protect the lives of women and give them the options and choices that they have as a right are now being called drug dealers. This fight is going to continue.
This appears to be the first time that a state has criminally charged a doctor in another state for prescribing abortion drugs. New York and several other Democratic-led states have passed so-called shield laws to protect doctors who provide abortion pills to patients in other states. This case is an early test of conservative states' power to prosecute doctors outside their borders and stop abortion medication from reaching their residents. The Abortion Coalition for Telemedicine, which was co-founded by Dr. Carpenter, says that threats against doctors jeopardise women's access to reproductive health care and should alarm everyone.
Jessica Masurier reporting there from New York. Well, for more, we're joined now by Julie F.K., co-founder of the Abortion Coalition for Telemedicine. Thank you so much for being with us this evening, Julie, on the programme here. As I say, you co-founded the organisation that Dr. Carpenter represents. How did you find yourselves at the centre of this firestorm?
Well, the Abortion Coalition for Telemedicine, or ACT, is the only national reproductive rights organization that stands up for telemedicine from licensed practitioners in all 50 states. So we were built and designed to protect access to telemedicine for all patients, no matter what zip code or their ability to pay.
And talk to us a little bit more about Dr. Carpenter. Does she risk arrest, essentially, if she travels out of state? What is the current situation for the doctor?
You know, abortion providers in America are a unique bunch of physicians who are really mission-driven. They recognize that reproductive health care is essential, and so they are dedicated to making sure that women and pregnant people get access to that. The SHIELD laws create a safe way for licensed practitioners to give certified medications to patients anywhere and will not turn them over to anti-abortion politicians who bring lawsuits. So right now, Dr. Carpenter has had the strong support of Governor Hochul in New York State, and we expect that other governors will similarly stand up for Dr. Carpenter's right to perform safe, legal, and licensed care without risk of criminalization.
And Julie, what wider consequences could this case have, and do you expect that there will be others?
We would not be surprised to see increased attacks on access to mifepristone, which is the key medication that is used for safe abortion care globally. We expect that the anti-abortion forces who have for decades been trying to reduce women's access to abortion and to medication abortion will continue that. And when you go after a doctor, whether it's Dr. Carpenter or one of the many, many other doctors who are providing safe access to telemedicine abortion, you're really undermining the ability of tens of thousands of women to get access to safe care and to make the decisions that they need that are best for their families. And right now in the United States, 1/5 of all abortions are done by telemedicine. And it's the fastest growing method of abortion in the United States. So it has really brought the attention of anti-abortion officials who want to make abortion unavailable nationwide in the United States.
And you and your organization, you're determined not to back down on this. What happens next for you?
Well, what happens next in these cases depends on whether these state officials continue these cases. 70% of Americans want access to abortion under the Roe framework that was taken away by the Supreme Court. So, you know, there may be a kind of stranglehold on the legal enforcement in these states, but it doesn't represent popular opinion. And we're going to keep fighting for the rights of women to make decisions about whether, when, and whom, and with whom to have children or not as a fundamental human right, and as one that many, many states are standing behind for everybody throughout the nation.
And Donald Trump, he's moved separately to drop a high-profile case, this one in Idaho. It's a long-running legal battle over the right to emergency abortion services there. So what kind of signal does this send about how Donald Trump plans to interpret federal law going forward, laws that are designed essentially to protect urgent care when they come up against individual states' individual abortion bans?
What we've seen through the Trump administration's dropping of a lawsuit out of Idaho, as well as other state and federal actions towards removing life-saving medical care for miscarriage management, for post-abortion care, for pregnancy complications, is that they are devaluing women's lives. They are really playing Russian roulette with anybody who goes into a hospital seeking unbiased and best quality medical care to deal with pregnancy complications, with miscarriage, or a whole range of conditions. And it's really appalling to see that they would start trying to take away the right to somebody's life and health and future fertility simply because of an anti-abortion agenda.
Yeah, and speaking of that agenda, as you see it, Donald Trump has so far avoided questions about whether he'd veto a national ban on abortion. Are you concerned that that is actually where the US is moving?
You know, this is the president that brought us an ultra-conservative Supreme Court that had one goal, and that was to overturn Roe versus Wade, and they've done that. And they took away a lot of constitutional rights in doing that, rights that have been established for 50 years, and rights to abortion care that were also very similar to the rights of LGBTQ people to have marriage, of interracial marriage. So he's really taken a big whack at our constitutional rights, and I don't trust that that won't happen again. You know, unless we really start standing up and protecting our reproductive freedoms, the right to access contraception, IVF, emergency contraception, abortion, and safe maternal care for everybody, then we're going to lose those rights. It's really important that Americans really keep their eye on the goal of expanding and restoring abortion rights in this country for everyone. And
Julie, those rights, they obviously differ depending on which state you're in, vastly. You mentioned those SHIELD laws earlier. New York is one of the Democrat-led states that has specific legislation protecting doctors who provide abortion pills to women in other states. But how does that actually work in practice, legally speaking? How is that protection offered to them?
So 8 states have passed telemedicine abortion shield laws. Some are led by Democratic governors, some are led by Republican governors, and it really is a step forward to say that if a licensed practitioner is using telemedicine within that state, within that shield state, that it doesn't matter where the patient is, the abortion is taking place within the state, and they will protect that doctor's, that licensed practitioner's right to provide safe care. Regardless of the patient location. We talk about it as the modern day house call, that the doctor is sort of treating patients regardless of where they are. And it really has been tremendously successful in serving women in areas that are under-resourced because there just aren't clinics, but even in places, Boston, Chicago, major cities where women choose telemedicine because they can have the exact same medications, taking them in the safety and comfort of their own home without having to travel, without having the costs and expense and having to go past clinic harassers and others. So there are a lot of benefits, and we want to make sure that every woman gets to make the decision about what method of abortion is right for her.
And Donald Trump's decisions and, his actions, they're not just having repercussions for women in the US. Talk to us a little bit about the impact that the decision to freeze foreign aid has had on reproductive health services around the world, particularly for the most vulnerable women.
Yeah, the denial of funding from the Trump administration has had devastating effects in many different parts of the world. Access to contraception is a key part of women's health. We already weren't funding much access to abortion services, but even medical trials, all sorts of pregnancy care. There are so many ways that reproductive health care needs support. And to all of a sudden cut off that support, we're really putting women's lives in danger. And I think the thing to remember is that when we look at how we provide care, even in the U.S., we have one of the worst maternal mortality rates in the world. And we have the ability to do much better, and we need to stop playing politics with women's lives.
Julie, we'll have to leave it there for now. We do really appreciate you joining us on the programme this evening. That's Julie F.K., co-founder of the Abortion Coalition for Telemedicine. Thank you so much for being with us. Well, that is it from us for now.